everyone, welcome to this video. This is an updated video on Workaway. I actually made a video some years ago, but I've recently learned more and more about it, and I would like to share this information with you again in a more refined way. First of all, what is Workaway? Workaway is a work exchange program. It is a platform, meaning on this platform you have hosts who are looking for guests. You can find a host family that will host you for free in exchange for a few hours of work a day. So me, I'm normally on the guest side and I'm looking for a host. You might know other platforms called helpx, worldpackers, I think, and woofing, who do similar things. Now these hosts are often people that have hostels, small businesses, farms, and anything where you can easily help and where you wouldn't take a regular person's job. You're more helping the family a little bit in their day-to-day life, and families are often interested in cultural exchange. I do want to say this because often people have the idea that you take another person's job with doing Workaway, and while I partly understand the criticism, I do think from my own experience, a lot of the hosts, they're really just looking for someone to talk to share their life with, rather than a just regular employee. My experience with Workaway and these work exchanges goes back 15 years. I started on Woofing, which is a platform more focused on farm work, and then I found Workaway, which is more focused on kind of everything, hostels, maybe schools or something like this, babysitting. Yeah. Now, why would somebody do Workaway? First of all, I think it's a brilliant way of cultural exchange. I don't think there's a better way to really immerse yourself into a culture for a short amount of time. Obviously, if you move to a country, you can look for a job and then you will have your own experience there. But in order to really live with a host family for a short amount of time abroad in another country, this is a brilliant way. Number two, it is very economical. Of course, it's a very good way to save money and to travel the world. I would have never been able to travel so much had it not been for these kinds of websites. I think there have been many times when I spent around $10 a week doing this sort of work exchange, meaning my monthly expenses were around $40. I once did 6 weeks of Workaway in the middle of nowhere and I spent $30 in 6 weeks. Now granted, if you're in a city or if you are somewhere where there is more opportunity to spend your money on, of course you can spend more money, but if you really want to have a very cheap way of traveling, this is a way to go. Also mind you that when you have these agreements with your host, you have to see what they're offering you. Some hosts only offer accommodation, or they only offer one meal a day for a reduced amount of work. You have to check that with them. Now, 3, we had the cultural exchange. This kind of ties in with that, but I want to make an extra point out of it. It is the language exchange. Now, I'm an avid language learner. I'm so passionate about learning languages, and I do believe that it's very helpful to go to the country where the language is spoken. Workaway and woofing and these work exchanges are just brilliant ways of doing so. You will live with a local family if they are local, and you have the chance to hear them use the language daily and maybe even use the language yourself. Now, what I have to say is that there are many workaways, or most workaways, where the hosts speak good English and where communication will be in English. You can find hosts though that will speak the local language, and I have a few tips for you. Number 1, you can actually filter on Workaway for people and hosts that are interested in a language exchange. Usually hosts will post the languages they speak and you can see whether that matches your expectations. 2, select a family with kids. Now, your hosts might speak very good English or French or German or whatever, but their kids might not. So if you are helping a family that has kids, chances are you will be able to use the local language. This way I've improved my Japanese tremendously by just hanging out with kids and also my Italian by playing with the kids. So this is an excellent way. 3, go to a place where people are a bit older. I'm saying where maybe there's a grandparent living with the family, or where you spend time with retired people. The reason being is they have a lot of time. They often speak slower and they're more willing to, bring the patience to help you learn the language. Plus, I will say that I feel like older people will have a lot more knowledge in terms of the culture and be able to explain more cultural, traditional traditions to you. And 4, try to find a workaway where you're by yourself. This is a bit of a tricky one because I will say that I often prefer workaways with several people for the social aspect. If you're by yourself, you will feel lonely. I think there's no way around this because your host won't have time for you all the time. They might have a regular job. They will have many other things to do. So you will be by yourself a lot. And many of those hosts are in the countryside or a bit further out. So you will need to be a person who's quite independent, who can entertain themselves. If you can't do that very well, it would be better to find a workaway with several people. You will form new friendships and you have people to hang out with. Problem is though that if there are several people involved, 99% of the time the language of communication will be English. That is because you just can't expect everyone to know the local language. For example, I was at a workaway in the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, and there was 4 of us, 1 Italian girl, 1 Argentinian guy, a guy from Israel, and me. Now, I had been learning Italian for the last 2.5 months, and I was very interested in speaking Italian. Italian girl spoke little English, and the Argentinian guy also spoke better Italian. But of course, because of the 4th person, who was a great person, nothing against him at all, but he couldn't speak Italian, so of course our communication would mainly be in English. The host was fluent in all kinds of languages, so he'd speak English so that all of us could understand it. This is what I mean with, it's hard to find a volunteering placement where everyone speaks the local language unless that's English. So you kind of have to pick your battles. Okay, so these are the advantages I see. Now, maybe some points to consider if you are thinking about doing workaway. Number 1, it's very important that you are open for a new experience. I think you have to go there with low expectations. Often the accommodation will be very simple. It can range, it can vary. I've had all kinds of accommodations, but you should always expect to be sleeping in a dorm or on a mattress on the floor, and then just hope you get a better agreement. Especially if there's several people, you will definitely be sharing your room, which is another point that speaks for going to volunteering by yourself. But yes, so it will not be a very fancy way of accommodation. In terms of food, many hosts will be great cooks. You have to check with them if you have allergies or you have certain ways and styles of eating. There are hosts who are very happy to host vegans or vegetarians, or who are vegan and vegetarian themselves. There are other hosts who will clearly state that they will not make any adjustments. So that's just something to keep in mind. So accommodation and food. If you really want a single room, you just have to go to a place that only takes 1 volunteer, or where you know that they have sort of guest rooms. But you should also be prepared for changes, right? I have done several workaways where the situation changed. So maybe I had a workaway where I was the only volunteer for some time. I had my private room and maybe even had a beautiful guest room because they didn't have guests in their guest house. And then suddenly they had guests and customers, so I had to move out of the guest room. Suddenly another workawayer came, so I had to share my space. You just have to be open for that. And it's challenging because we're all creatures of habit, and you go to this new place and you're like, okay, I will live with what I have here. but that situation might change within a few days. So that's just what it is, right? There's no clear written agreement that you have a single room with these and these things inside, or that your meals are going to be like this. You just have to try and be flexible. In terms of work, you should also try and be very open to doing different things. I will say that unless you're very skilled in sort of handy things, unless you're like a carpenter or something, tasks at workaways often include cleaning. So you should be comfortable with cleaning toilets and bathrooms, tidying up old basements, attics, like sorting out things. That's a very popular task. Weeding, so working in the garden, pulling weeds, maybe planting new seedlings, harvesting. Any other outside work where you have to tidy up things, rearrange things, maybe paint something, things that don't need too much instruction, and often things that the host doesn't want to do. I will say that honestly. Like I said, I feel like you helping them with your work power isn't necessarily because otherwise they would have another real worker there, but they just want somebody to help them with some small tasks. Also maybe because they're no longer able to do them, right? Some hosts are older and they're happy if somebody younger comes along who can help them. I will also say that you might have the chance to really bring in your creative juices. I've had several workaways where they were very open to volunteers bringing in suggestions on, I don't know, on how to design their house, how to paint a mural, how to arrange a garden, what recipes to cook for some event that they were having, how to teach English to the kids. So it can be a real opportunity for you to be quite creative. Especially if you have specific skills, people will love to have you. I think people love having carpenters, people who know how to build things, like in construction, designers, artists to paint something. Because lots of hosts, right, people who go on this kind of profile, they're usually people who are quite artistic. They're probably not your stereotypical person in that society because they're willing to open their home to foreigners staying with them for a while. So they're often quite atypical people in a good way. I like them. Most hosts, I think, are very inspiring. They often have traveled themselves a lot. They often have a lot of experience kind of living life in very simple ways and with very simple means. And they often have lots of interesting life experience to share. That's also something to keep in mind. So yes, another point to keep in mind is every host is different. Some hosts will be hands-on, they will be around you a lot. You'll have the chance to interact with them a lot. And other hosts will barely be there because maybe they live in a different building or they're very busy with work. Again, this is something you have to be prepared for. It depends on the workaway. Sometimes you can see it from the way they talk about their profile, but also other times you just have to understand that you're basically joining that host for a short amount of time and you're just part of the actual life that's happening. So there are just moments when maybe your host is incredibly busy because something happened in their life. And that's just because it's a regular life that you're joining, not a work agreement, right? So maybe somebody got sick or they suddenly had to move or something broke. Just be prepared and open for all of this. Okay, what else can I say? You should just think, what do you want to get out from the workaway? There are workaways that teach you specific skills. So maybe you want to learn how to work more with plants, plant seedlings, grow plants by themselves. You can find workaways like this. There are workaways that teach you how to milk cows or how to take care of animals. So how to teach English. This is how I got into English teaching, by just volunteering at a school. Just think about what you want to get out from the workaway. Another point I want to make is that when you visit the family, they often would love to get to know your culture. So if you bring them a small gift, that will be greatly appreciated. maybe some sweets from your country, or you can cook a local meal. They'll be very happy about this. Now, I will say that I'm very scared of making food for other people. I don't feel that comfortable, even though I love cooking, but making food for other people is quite scary to me. The way I compromised on that was that I would either bring like a snack from Germany, or I would make some sweets because they're easier to make. I feel like they're more foolproof. Or you can just try and make a recipe that you've made a lot before. Don't reinvent the wheel. Maybe they don't have all the ingredients anyway. Just the act of doing this will make them happy, even if it's not perfect. They'll be happy. I have really messed up a few of my dishes for my host families, and I mean, most of the time they're nice enough not to say anything, and they just appreciate that you did something for them. I mean, think about it. I'm always very happy when somebody prepares food for me, even if it's not my favorite meal. I'm still so grateful that I didn't have to cook and somebody made the effort to cook for me. So I think that goes also for workaway. Another thing to think about now when you're selecting a host, what are the things you should think about? First of all, think about who you're comfortable or who you would be comfortable living with. I'm saying this especially as a woman who travels by herself. I have been contacted by single men and their workaway, and I just simply didn't feel that comfortable about this. I also want to say that they might have great reviews and they might be sincere, but I actually tried this once. I was contacted by a host in Italy who was a single man, and it sounded like an interesting experience, but I was still unsure because I just thought I wouldn't feel comfortable living in a house with a man that I don't know. So I actually reached out to a few of the people who had left reviews under his profile, and those people had written 5-star reviews. But when I actually started digging a bit, they would tell me that he could be a bit flirty and maybe they didn't feel that comfortable. So you really have to think about this. Don't trust all the reviews. Read between the lines. Keep some common sense. And yes, there are many other hosts to choose from, right? And if you do feel comfortable and you do want to try and you don't want to judge people by that, it's fine, right? I'm all for giving it a try, but just do what you feel comfortable with. If you don't like working with kids, then just take somebody who doesn't have kids, right? If you don't want to share a room, find a place that takes only one person at a time. I think that speaks for itself. You can also read between the lines how much work is expected. Some people might say, you have to work so much if you calculate what you'd earn per hour, that's not a fair hourly wage. I agree with this statement. Still, I think you have to think about it as a cultural exchange and as a sort of an internship and learning experience where it's very hard to put a price on it and just often isn't paid. If you don't agree with this, you can always find an internship and find a paid job, maybe abroad. I must say that the amount of work that hosts expect from you is also very different. There are some hosts that have very irregular work hours. They will say, I just want you to help me improve my English a little bit. So once a day for an hour or two, we'll sit together and chat, and maybe I have some small tasks for you. So you might end up working an hour or two a day and still get accommodation and meals. Whereas other hosts might have a fixed schedule. They might say, okay, you work from 9 to 2 with an hour break, and they will stick to that and you will work those hours. So read the reviews, think about whether it's worth it for you, think about whether you want a clear schedule or whether you rather want a more flexible place. This is also important if you're a freelancer or a digital nomad. Make sure that you understand when your work hours are, if possible, because you might have to arrange your work time around it. If you have fixed appointments, like if you're a teacher, make sure you communicate with the host beforehand that you are not available at certain times, so that you have to do your own work. It's so important to check this beforehand, because otherwise that might cause issues. But normally speaking, hosts are often very open and flexible to this, right? You're not signing a contract in the end, so just make sure you talk about this. You can also ask hosts to tell you how good the internet is. What I haven't done, but what I think I should do sometimes, is ask for a speed test result. Because when people say the internet is good, what does that really mean, right? If you do online calls, if you do video calls, you might have to compromise sometimes with the internet quality. And if it's essential for your income and for your life, you might have to really dig down on that a little bit. I've had negative experience in the sense that I didn't think about this, and then I arrived at the property and I realized, oh, the internet will not be good enough to have clear video calls with a customer. Another thing to think about is, what do the surroundings look like? There are some places that are simply in the middle of nowhere. And usually those places are amazing. Those are often the best, I think, because it's a very unique environment to be in and you will truly be immersed in the culture. What it does mean though is that you might struggle to maybe go to a supermarket and buy some things of daily necessities. So you have to check beforehand with your host about this. Some hosts will give you more information on this than others, but just be prepared to maybe always have some snacks with you in case you're more hungry or you just want to snack on something. Make sure you have all your shampoo and hygiene articles with you. Make sure you have enough cash in case you cannot get cash out. Make sure you have enough clothes. Often in the countryside and in simpler places, it might get cold, so you really want several layers. Take several layers. This is so important. Also, in terms of clothing, make sure you have some clothes that could get dirty, could be ruined. If you work outside or you are cleaning, painting, pulling weeds, your things just might not look the same afterwards anymore. So if you know that you're doing this kind of work exchange, make sure you take some clothing that you can live without. That doesn't mean that they will necessarily get torn, but they might, and you should be prepared for this. Check with the hosts beforehand. Some hosts will have clothes for their workers, others won't. Just ask, do I need to bring old clothes? Do you have anything? And if you have special food requests, also maybe make sure that there's a supermarket around where you can buy that, because you might have to supplement the food that the host is offering you, right? This is just what it is. They provide you with the food that they think you should have, and it's your choice to add to this. Yeah, and otherwise just enjoy. I mean, this is a very long video now. I just have a lot of experience with this. I think Workaway has been one of my best experiences. Like, I've made so many unique experiences that other people have never had. I've harvested rice in Japan. I sold sweets at a market. I volunteered at a language school. I had the opportunity to work in little guest houses and all this. So yeah, I met really cool people that I'm friends with to this day, even though I met them 5 to 10 years ago. Yeah, I made friends all over the world through this. I practiced languages. I learned from my hosts about their culture, but also about life in general. And it's a nice way of slow traveling, and a really affordable way, and an interesting way. So I hope you will have some great experiences as well. Let me know if you have any other questions. Maybe the last point I should mention is that because you are working as a volunteer, you have to make sure that you're eligible in the country to volunteer at. So for example, I'm European, so in Europe I'm legally allowed to work everywhere, so it's not a problem for me. I also had working holiday visas in Japan, in Canada, in Australia, etc. And those allowed me to be a volunteer as well. So just make sure that you comply with the legal requirements. You have to check this for your own country and the country that you're visiting. Yes. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments. I'll be very happy to answer them. I'll make another video maybe in a shorter form, in a Q&A. Yeah, if you like this video, like it, subscribe to my channel, share it with somebody who might need it, who might need this information. And yeah, thanks so much for watching if you watched all the way to here. I know it's a very long video, but yeah, thanks for watching and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!